This presentation will be deep diving into self-driving cars. We've all heard of self-driving cars, but have probably never stopped to think about how exactly they function. They have the big job of sensing and correctly perceiving everything surrounding them, similarly to how a human's visual perception process functions. The basic technologies used for perception are LiDAR, which uses rotating laser beams to detect and represent nearby objects, radar, which transmits and receives radio waves, and video cameras. LiDAR, in combination with GPS-based maps, provides information about size, shape, and location of an object up to a certain distance away, but not color. Radar is used to detect objects a much shorter distance away and is faster than LiDAR. Video cameras are what are used to detect color. These mechanisms work together to classify objects into categories to help determine a car's reaction or lack of to something. Some examples of these categories include vehicles, bicyclists, pedestrians, and other. The way a self-driving car familiarizes itself with the surroundings has many parallels to human perception. LiDAR, radar, video cameras, and auditory sensors supply raw visual and audible information similar to our eyeballs and our ears. A computer in the car processes all of the raw information taken in similar to our brains. The car has object recognition software similar to the function of multiple regions of our ventral pathway. The car must determine the distances of objects from itself, like how we use depth perception. The car distinguishes color with the video camera, similar to our V4 area of the brain. Finally, the car has to distinguish motion of different types relative to itself, just like we do too. When considering if self-driving cars are safer than human-driven cars, pros and cons can both be considered. A couple pros include the car always being attentive to the road without being distracted, and it will follow the rules to a fault. A couple cons include that the car could incorrectly categorize objects, which could then lead to an inappropriate reaction, and, also, that the car will follow the laws to a fault. This is a pro as well as a con because it could cause accidents in an area where the law is frequently broken and the humans driving cars around the self-driving car aren't necessarily expecting the change in behavior.
Alright, so my name is Ivy, and for my section, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the history of self-driving cars. So driverless cars have been appearing in media, and especially in science fiction, since around the 1930s. And in 1958, General Motors actually created the first self-driving car, and this was an electric vehicle that was guided by radio-controlled electromagnetic fields that were generated with magnetized metal spikes that were embedded into the roadway. So in 1977, Japan improved upon this model by including a camera system that could then relay data to a computer, which basically allowed the vehicle to process images that were on the road. However, this car could only go 20 miles an hour. So in the late 1980s, Germany took Japan's model and they introduced their own car, which could drive faster. It could actually go up to 56 miles an hour. And their vehicle had it had more cameras attached to it than Japan's model did. So in the U.S., in 2014, the DARPA challenged teams to compete for $1 million prize, and their goal was to have a vehicle that could be used for militaries. So they were hoping to have self-driving military vehicles by the year 2015. And so it's important to note that while the US did eventually establish itself as a serious contender for self-driving technology, it was Europe that first created the groundwork.
Okay, and now we're going to start talking about the technology of self-driving cars today. So currently there is 2 people needed in a car to be tested on the road. And obviously due to COVID-19 and social distancing rules, this has not been able to happen. So a lot of projects have been, well, a lot if not all projects have been put on hold. And that caused a lot of startups to have to have shut down because they didn't have enough funding to maintain and wait for the pandemic to be over. So prior to the pandemic, these self-driving cars have actually been starting to be tested on the roads, and they were tested in retirement centers due to less traffic in the area. And research actually has been stopped prior to COVID 19 before, because in 2018, a self driving car actually killed a pedestrian. So obviously, self driving cars are still a long way from being perfected. And the Google self driving car, Waymo, was actually supposed to come out in 2020. Obviously, that has not occurred. However, on their website, they have a list of their current technology that they have. So, first, their team builds a detailed map, which includes road profiles, curbs, sidewalks, crosswalks, traffic lights. And then the cars are consistently scanning around like the visual field, and it's looking for things like pedestrians, cyclists, vehicles, road work, and then they also can read traffic controls like temporary stop signs and railroad crossings. Um, and the car can see 3 football fields away in every single direction. And then the cars can predict movement based on the speed and trajectory of objects coming at it or objects in the field of view in general. And this helps it know that a bike is going to be coming at a different speed than another car will.
Explaining the impact that self-driving cars will have on us, I described that new jobs will be created due to self-driving cars. This includes jobs regarding testing out new technology, and also maintenance for cars will have to go up with self-driving cars. There will no longer be a need for things such as bus drivers and other public transportation workers, because buses will likely be replaced with automated shuttles. However, it should even out that it will help us with jobs. Also, traffic fines will be almost non-existent due to this, because you can't make your self-driving car speed, obviously. Drivers will have a lot more free time. The average person spends 40 minutes a day driving, and this gives them 40 minutes a day every day to do more work or just enjoy your free time. It will prevent some car crashes, not all. Roughly 1/3 of car crashes are due solely to human error, and there's already been a pedestrian death due to a self-driving vehicle in Arizona. It did not detect that there was a woman walking across the street, and it struck and killed her. I also explained that there will be less traffic in urban areas. I do not believe that there will be no traffic at all, because there will probably still be car crashes, but it is likely to decrease traffic caused solely by just slow drivers or people driving slow in both lanes, or semi-drivers and stuff like that.
Future of self-driving cars. The big question is, when will they be available? Most companies started production in 2016 and had their sights set on completion by 2021. This was very unrealistic because it takes about 16 years in order to be completely finished. It's also unlikely for the future to be fully driverless due to the fact that the software needs to have video game-like programming, meaning that all roads and buildings need to be pre-programmed into the software, so that way if one of these cars were to end up on a rural road that wasn't pre-mapped out, it wouldn't know what to do or where to go. These cars also need to have small human-like habits that companies are having a difficult time finding the technology to mimic these. And without these habits, these cars aren't 100% safe and 100% reliable, and therefore cannot be on the roads. But what benefits will be seen in the future if driverless cars become the norm? There'll be reduced traffic congestion because 30% less cars will be on the road. Transportation costs will be cut by about 40% in terms of vehicles, fuel, and infrastructure. The economy will be better because people will have more money to spend on things that they enjoy instead of car insurance, licensing, vehicle repairs, and tickets. Since these cars are programmed to follow the rules of the road, there'll be no speeding tickets, there'll be no illegal parking tickets, and less car accidents will happen, so therefore car repairs will not be as necessary as they used to be. These cars will also help with global warming because they reduce carbon dioxide emissions by about 80% worldwide. They will also grant independence and allow for more happiness. There's about 20,000 to 30,000 people that can't drive due to physical and mental disabilities. A self-driving car will allow them to leave their house, get a job, go out and do things that they weren't previously able to do. Um, they will also be less traffic fights and less road rage because the cars will not cut other cars off. There'll be no tailgating, there'll be no reckless driving. The roads will be all around a safer place to be, and therefore will be a more positive impact.